Atlanta's streets are humming more than ever, and the commotion isn't limited to the rivalry between Rashida and Yandy. Fans are shocked to hear that Mendeecees himself has been affected by the aftermath, according to recent rumors. Rumor has it that Mendeecees is enraged by Kirk Frost's passionate threat against Yandy, and is prepared to intervene and defend his wife in a way that might completely upend the hip-hop and love scenes. Fans are asking the same question, blogs are exploding, and social media is ablaze. What happens when two men clash in the midst of a rivalry that was already getting out of hand? According to insiders, Kirk's warning didn't only scare Yandy, it ignited a fire within Mendeecees that he isn't going to put out in silence. Is this merely more smoke to stir the pot? Or is it the beginning of a fresh confrontation that pulls families further into the drama? There is no doubt that the tension is high, and that everyone is curious about what Mendeecees is up to, now that his wife has been caught in the crossfire. This narrative is going to get messy, so fasten your seatbelt. The ripple effect spread more quickly than anyone anticipated as soon as Kirk's warning to Yandy started to get out. Fans couldn't stop playing the video again. Blogs used it as a headline, and one name, Mendeecees, began trending alongside it in the midst of all the commotion. People wanted to know how he felt and what his reaction was when he saw his wife stand shoulder to shoulder with Rashida and then be taken by surprise by Kirk's rage. His camp's silence only stoked interest, and the rumors became stronger with each passing second. There were rumors that Mendeecees was furious as soon as he heard the video. He was pacing the floor and shaking his head, according to family insiders, in shock that Kirk would even consider going over that line. According to one insider, he said, "That man better stay in his lane, because he threatens me as soon as he threatens my wife." Fans were enthralled, picturing the composed yet guarded spouse prepared to reveal a side that is rarely shown on screen. However, the tale did not stop there. According to the rumors, Mendeecees made it plain that he wasn't going to overlook the situation by reaching out to those who were close to Kirk. The dynamic that might alter the course of the season changed. From a brawl between two ladies to an impending confrontation between two husbands, it had more weight because of the familial element. This was pride and protection, not merely gossip or shade. Caught in the middle, Rashida allegedly attempted to minimize the situation behind the scenes by claiming that Kirk's remarks were spoken in a moment of rage and weren't intended to worsen the situation. Fans, however, didn't buy it. Kirk's clenched fists, his voice cracking with controlled wrath, and Rashida's fingers gripping his arm as though she knew he was seconds away from doing something he couldn't take back, were all examples of how his body language conveyed a different message. However, Yandy wasn't letting the moment go unnoticed. She added gasoline to the flames in her own subtle way. She made it clear that she wasn't afraid, that no danger could stop her, and that Kirk had simply served to highlight her point. The more she said, the more it seemed like a call to action for Mendeecees to intervene and demonstrate to the world that she wasn't alone. During a live performance, she assured a group of followers, "I have people on my side," in a composed yet assured tone. And everyone was aware of who she was talking about. This was blown out of proportion by the blogosphere. Are the Mendeecees prepared to protect Yandy from Kirk Frost? One headline cried out. Another said, "Family feud turns deadly serious." It hardly mattered now if the stories were genuine or not. The impression was sufficient. The idea of Kirk and Mendeecees, two men known for their composed exteriors, finally losing control became too much to resist as fans began to imagine what it would look like if they met in person. Mendeecees has always held himself with quiet strength, avoiding needless controversy, according to some supporters. The rumors were much more startling because of that. The situation was more bad than anyone had anticipated if a man who typically remained composed was now willing to face Kirk. And loyalty was important to others. They respected Mendeecees' willingness to defend his wife, even if it meant arguing with a longtime friend. The commentary parts were overflowing. One fan added, "This ain't gonna end well." If Kirk thought Rashida was noisy, wait until he sees Mendeecees step in, someone else said. At the same time, hashtags like #TeamYandy and #TeamRashida became viral, with people arguing over who was right, who was wrong, and who would win if the men ever really got into a fight. Producers were anxious, according to cast friends. Given that both men had families and reputations to uphold, they did not want the issue to escalate into a physical altercation. However, they were unable to overlook the possibility of higher scores. According to one insider, drama sells. They realize this plot is fantastic, even though they don't want it to go unpleasant. Fans will stop at nothing to keep the cameras rolling because they are addicted. The true concern of everybody was the extent to which Mendeecees would travel. Would he let the tension build and wait for the appropriate opportunity, or would he approach Kirk head-on? Others asserted that he wanted to address it openly to make it obvious that no one could treat his wife disrespectfully without repercussions, while others stated he was already getting ready for a private meeting. In any case, the suspense was sufficient to keep followers riveted to every news flash, every whispered story, and every rumor about what might occur next. Despite everything, Yandy appeared nearly composed, as like she knew precisely what she was doing. Many others thought she had anticipated this response from the beginning, and had always been astute at manipulating the story. She had unintentionally brought Mendeecees into the forefront by entangling Kirk in the rivalry, and now the drama had doubled in scope. Both women's marriages were put to the test in front of millions of spectators, as what started out as a passionate argument between them turned into a war of houses. When fresh rumors surfaced that Mendeecees had actually spoken to Kirk directly, just as it appeared that the dust may finally settle. It's unknown what was said in that purported chat, but the fact that the rumor spread so far indicates how involved people were. Fans conjectured endlessly. Were Kirk warned to back off by Mendeecees? Was Kirk sorry? Or did what the two men said set off a new level of tension that was just itching to explode? The tension was heightened by the uncertainty, which left everyone wondering how this story would play out. Fans couldn't stop wondering what actually happened as allegations of a private conversation between Kirk and Mendeecees circulated like wildfire. Some insiders swore that the conversation took place over the phone, while others said that their common acquaintances arranged the tense in-person meeting because they were anxious to prevent the situation from getting worse. The murmurs had the same thread regardless of whose version people chose to believe. The Mendeecees took Kirk's threat seriously, and it was impossible to ignore his rage. He allegedly told Kirk in a calm but foreboding tone, "You crossed the line. Say anything you want about me, but you never approach my wife in that manner." Kirk attempted to dismiss it as heat-of-the-moment conversation, according to individuals who claimed to have overheard the chat, but Mendeecees wasn't persuaded. "Heat of the moment, don't make you threaten a woman," the voice purportedly went on. "You realize that's not manly conduct." Social media was inundated with replies from followers who allegedly read the transcript of this altercation. Mendeecees was hailed by some as the epitome of loyalty for defending. Yandy. One remark that received thousands of likes said, "That's what a real husband does." Others countered that Mendeecees was only stoking the flames because Kirk had already been pushed to the limit. Another admirer commented, "This could have ended quietly, but now it's a whole family war." Meanwhile, Rashida allegedly felt torn between defensiveness and humiliation. She was reportedly incensed that Kirk's outburst had brought their marriage back into the public front and exposed long-standing issues that she had laboriously tried to resolve. However, she remained steadfast in defending her husband, telling friends that Yandy has been teasing us for too long. Although Kirk isn't flawless, no one can criticize him in that way without my helping out as well. As it became apparent that the dispute was more than just Kirk versus Mendeecees, but rather a collision of spouses whose marriages were scrutinized by the public, her remarks only served to heighten the tension. Never one to back down from a fight, Yandy embraced the drama. "All I'll say is, my man don't play about me," she teased her audience during a late-night live session. "You all saw what Kirk said, and you know Mendeecees ain't the type to sit back quiet," she remarked. Fans went crazy when they saw her sly smirk. Fans debated whether this fight would truly escalate on screen, and within minutes, hashtags like Shawn Mendeecees fees Kirk and Protectee Yandy started trending. The blogs went one step further by illustrating the potential appearance of a clash. Kirk reportedly appeared anxious at a local gathering, with some speculating that he was afraid of running encounter Mendeecees. Others claimed that in order to capture what might be one of the most explosive scenes in the franchise's history, executives were frantically deciding behind the scenes whether to keep the men apart or put them together on camera. A producer who wished to remain unnamed apparently said that if they film this, ratings will skyrocket. Fans have already committed. Everyone is curious about how far the Mendeecees will go and whether Kirk would stand his stance or give in. The suspense was intoxicating for fans. Predictions were posted on message boards. Some people believed that Kirk would be publicly confronted by Mendeecees in front of the entire cast, making him take responsibility for his remarks. Others thought he had been waiting for the right moment to attack when Kirk least anticipated it. The quiet before the storm was only making matters worse. Everyone agreed. And although the men were the subject of conjecture, their families experienced equally profound repercussions. According to those close to Rashida, she was having difficulty maintaining her household and was concerned that Kirk's reputation was once again going haywire. According to one insider, she's tired. Tired of constantly being the face of damage control, tired of defending him, and tired of being pulled into a mess she didn't start. On the other hand, it was said that Yandy felt vindicated and told pals she had no regrets about what she said. She allegedly said, "If speaking the truth makes people uncomfortable, that's on them." Kirk lost his temper on his own. "I didn't make him do it." Fans dug through previous episodes as their emotions were running high, bringing up every dubious occurrence involving Kirk and Yandy to demonstrate how long this rivalry had been developing. Clips of side-eyes, subtle barbs, and quiet shade went viral online, and many people thought they hinted at the present outburst. One admirer wrote on Twitter, "This has been simmering for ages. We simply were unaware of its depth." And then there was the unexpected turn of events. Rumor began to circulate that Mendeecees was not merely upset. He intended to act in a way that went beyond words. According to insiders, he had previously made it clear to common acquaintances that he would not be attending Kirk's gatherings, effectively putting a line in the sand that might potentially split the ensemble. If accurate, it would put alliances to the test and force everyone in Atlanta's close-knit community to take sides. The fan base was rocked by the prospect of such a separation. In the hopes that the men would resolve their differences before the performance devolved into a battleground, several pleaded for reconciliation. But some were hankering after more. One fan commented frankly, "Let them fight. This drama is what we agreed upon. Let guys deal with it the way women do." People debated whether the franchise should support that degree of contention or if the boundary had already been passed after the comment. Even people who usually remained silent were compelled to weigh in because the tension grew so great. Another cast member allegedly wrote, "Sometimes silence ain't strength, it's patience," in a mysterious comment that was posted online. Additionally, the real explosions begin when patience runs out. Fans quickly conjectured that it was about Mendeecees, taking it as a sign that things were far from resolved. The conflict was now more than just a dispute between two families. It was a topic of conversation in society. Every rumor became front-page content. Radio hosts discussed it on morning shows, and fans across took sides as if it were a heavyweight boxing match. The magnitude of the response only served to highlight the significance of this plot and how strongly it appealed to themes of pride, loyalty, and the complex relationships between reputation and love. Nevertheless, one thing was evident in spite of all the commotion. Mendeecees wasn't going to ignore Kirk's threat. Everyone was eager to witness the conflict that was set in motion, whether it was through his words, deeds, or the quiet but potent weight of his presence. Atlanta was already trembling from rumors of a private altercation between Kirk and the Mendeecees, but what transpired next elevated the entire plot. Rumors started to circulate that filmmakers were secretly preparing to film the two men together, because they knew that if the tension broke out in front of millions of viewers, the ratings would soar. According to insiders, the decision wasn't made unanimously. Some said it was necessary for the show to dominate the media, while others were afraid things may get out of hand. In any case, supporters were already preparing for the prospect of a confrontation in public. Reactions to the concept were immediate on social media. One admirer commented, "This is going to be a war," and it went viral very fast. Another person added, "Kirk versus Mendeecees is the real main event. Forget about Rashida versus Yandy." The fan base had changed, viewing the conflict as a conflict between husbands, marriages, and reputations, rather than as a simple spat between two women. When Mendeecees himself made a subtle post that fans instantly related to the situation, the tension further increased. Although it was indirect, the meaning seemed clear. He added, "Protect what's yours, always," and included a picture of himself and Yandy. Despite its brief length, the caption said a lot. Supporting comments poured in from fans who saw it as a direct warning to Kirk that boundaries had been exceeded and that there would be repercussions. Kirk remained conspicuously silent, but that didn't stop him from speculating. Some saw his lack of social media activity as an indication of strategy, while others saw it as a symptom of remorse. One admirer wrote on Twitter, "He's keeping quiet because he knows Mendeecees is coming for him. He's just letting it blow over," said another. Kirk always manages to make things more complicated. Whatever the truth was, The tension was only increased by the mystery. Rashida, on the other hand, was unable to conceal her annoyance. According to those close to her, she was annoyed by the way Mendeecees and Yandy were distorting the story, but she was also tired of continually cleaning up Kirk's mess. She allegedly told a pal, "I feel like they're portraying us as villains just for ratings. We don't need strangers to add to the problems we've already faced in our marriage." However, the more she resisted, the more resolutely Yandy appeared to stand her ground. And now that Mendeecees were taking center stage, the dispute had grown into something far more significant than she could handle. Almost instantly, the cast began to split. Some took the side of Kirk and Rashida, claiming that Yandy's continual teasing about marriage and scandals had agitated them too much. Others backed Yandy, praising her for her courage in standing her ground even when Kirk's rage escalated to deadly proportions. The breakup wasn't silent, however. Cast members started making cryptic remarks online and disparaging each other without specifying specifics, which fueled further rumors about everyone's positions. One cast member wrote, "Loyalty is tested in silence, not noise." It was immediately taken as a barb against Kirk by fans. Many interpreted another post that said, "When you poke a lion, don't cry when it roars," as supporting Kirk's response. Fans analyzed every word and emoji in an attempt to decipher hidden meanings, turning every post into a guessing game. The drama generated discussions outside of the show as well. Talk radio hosts, bloggers, and even relationship specialists offered their opinions, examining the conflict as though it were a case study on marriage dynamics, pride, and masculinity. One commenter clarified that it's not just about Kirk and Yandy. On national television, it's about two households, two families, and what happens when boundaries are crossed. The conversation expanded the story's reach and made it a cultural talking topic for those who weren't even frequent viewers. The most startling allegation of all then surfaced. Mendeecees had previously informed producers that he wouldn't be willing to film with Kirk unless specific requirements were fulfilled. According to some insiders, he wanted Kirk to publicly admit that threatening Yandy had been inappropriate, while others said he sought an apology on camera. The internet was enraged at the mere notion of such conditions. One admirer countered, "Kirk looks weak if he apologizes. Mendeecees is going to pull him for eternity if he doesn't," as if it were a championship match. Spectators took sides in the never-ending arguments that resulted from the speculation. In her own subtle remarks, Yandy fanned the flames. "It's one thing to argue with me, but it's another thing to threaten me," she said to a group of supporters at a recent event. "I don't fight my battles alone," to put it simply. The audience applauded, taking her statement to mean that the Mendeecees were prepared to enter the ring. Fans began to envision the actual battle as the rivalry intensified. Timelines were overrun with memes, and phony posters for Kirk versus Mendeecees: The Battle of Atlanta were made. The story was transformed into an online spectacle as gifs of boxing battles, wrestling movies, and dramatic stare-downs were shared thousands of times. Curious to see if the drama would truly deliver, even those who were not part of the hip-hop and love fandom couldn't help but join in on the discussion. Kirk's supporters, meanwhile, maintained that he wasn't as guilty as everyone had made him out to be. They argued that he was provoked. If someone continued to bring up his marriage and his background, any man would lose it. However, people in the Yandy squad didn't believe it. One admirer retorted, "Not all men threaten women, but many men get provoked." That is the distinction. The arguments demonstrated how divisive the conflict had become as they spread into group conversations, comment sections, and live debates. According to reports, producers found it difficult to maintain narrative control. Beyond the boundaries of the show, the conflict had taken on a life of its own. With real-life repercussions lurking in the background, what started out as a plot was suddenly taking center stage in headlines. Is it possible that Kirk and Mendeecees will ever sit together again? Would there ever be harmony between Rashida and Yandy, or had the harm been too great? Everyone was on edge because of the unresolved questions, which increased the tension as though the whole thing were a cliffhanger that was about to blow up. One thing remained constant throughout. Mendeecees was no longer merely a supporting character in this story. His calmness had given way to resolve, his stillness to rage, and his devotion to Yandy to a force that Kirk could no longer ignore. There was no denying that the tension was only increasing and that the explosion everyone feared appeared closer than ever, regardless of whether people viewed him as a hero, a husband protecting his wife, or just another character in an endless cycle of drama. Rumors of a possible public confrontation between Kirk and Mendeecees seemed almost guaranteed as excitement increased. Every forthcoming event became the focus of intense conjecture from supporters who were certain the two guys would finally be pushed into the same room. The internet went into overdrive when it was announced that both couples had been invited to a charity banquet in Atlanta. One admirer wrote, "This is the showdown we've all been waiting for." Fans flocked outdoors, cameras flashed, and tension hummed through the air like lightning on the night of the event. Both couples arrived individually, and according to insiders, the moment the Mendeecees entered the room, the atmosphere changed. Although he appeared composed, others who saw him closely noted that his face conveyed a different message. He was concentrated, unwavering, and prepared for whatever that came his way. According to reports, Kirk, who had come earlier with Rashida, tensed up as soon as he saw his opponent within the structure. Even from across the room, attendees whispered that they could feel the intensity between them. While Yandy strolled proudly next to Mendeecees, her head held high as if daring anyone to question her presence, Rashida gripped closely to Kirk's arm, her jaw set. Everyone was drawn in by the unsaid tension, and the event itself abruptly became less significant. It was between these two families that was the actual spectacle. Producers reportedly rushed behind the scenes, uncertain about whether to step in or let the drama unfold naturally. When the couples eventually came into contact, the audience fell silent. Before the first words were spoken, there was a tense quiet that caused every eye to sharpen and every ear to lean closer. "So this is our current course of action?" According to reports, Mendeecees said in a calm but foreboding voice, "You believe that threatening my wife and trying to frighten her in front of everyone is acceptable? You didn't think I would get that?" Insiders claim that Kirk's reaction was prompt but defensive. It was intense at the time. "I spoke what I wanted to say, but I didn't touch anyone." Avoid interpreting it as something it wasn't. His voice faltered a little, torn between embarrassment and discomfort. Unable to contain himself, Yandy swung in. "Don't pretend that it wasn't your intention. You believed that you could get away with intimidating me. However, you overlooked the fact that I'm not alone. My spouse doesn't make fun of me." Rashida immediately retaliated, her voice cutting through the mutter of the throng. "Additionally, my husband is not required to answer to you. You continue to talk nonstop, entangling us in your mess, and now you want to blame us. Not today." With everyone gasping and phones popping out to record every moment, the room descended into chaos. Fans who later viewed the leaked footage would characterize it as one of the most dramatic sequences in the franchise's history, with pride clashing in real time and emotions running high. However, Mendeecees didn't speak louder. His remarks were sharper because he was calm. "You don't intimidate women. Not anyone's, not mine. It's between you all that you wish to fight with your wife's adversaries. But Kirk, you went too far, and you can't turn back once you've crossed it." The statement struck a deep chord. Kirk's body betrayed him. His fists tightened, his shoulders rigid, his breath irregular, yet his face hardened. The weight of Mendeecees. Words hung in the air like smoke, even while Rashida pulled at his arm and frantically pleaded with him to release it. Like the fan base, the crowd was split. Mendeecees was commended by several for maintaining his composure while remaining firm, and for defending Yandy without losing his cool. Others backed Kirk, arguing that he was unfairly portrayed as the antagonist and that he was provoked into the whole event. The argument immediately went viral on the internet, with followers analyzing every aspect of the interaction and producing countless loops of videos to support their claims. The cast members who were observing from the sidelines were equally divided. Some whispered that Kirk had gone too far, nodding in agreement with the Mendeecees. Others supported Rashida, claiming that Yandy had been agitating the situation for months before ultimately pushing Kirk over the edge. Suddenly, the family of the show felt like divided camps, with affiliations changing all at once. When one of the producers eventually intervened, putting a hand on Kirk's shoulder and forcefully guiding him away, the tension reached a breaking point. "Not here, not like this," they uttered in a tone that was a warning and a request. After a brief moment of resistance, Kirk allowed himself to be dragged back, his scowl never leaving Mendeecees. The feud wasn't finished. It was merely paused, and the silent standoff said more than words could. Following the event, social media went crazy. For hours, hashtags like #SaruFamilyFeudATL and Mendeecees Kirk were popular. Fan edits of the men's or faces appeared online, slowing down each eye contact to reveal hidden messages. One admirer wrote, That look Kirk gave at the end isn't over. This is only the start. In a late-night post, Yandy added fuel to the fire by sharing a photo of herself holding hands with Mendeecees with the simple phrase, "protected." The internet went crazy, taking it as a victory lap and a statement that she had a spouse who was there for her no matter what Kirk said or did. Rashida responded with a post of her own, stating that loyalty is louder than noise, and including a photo of herself and Kirk grinning at the event. As a silent but potent extension of the dispute, the back and forth between the couples turned into a caption war. According to insiders, producers were ecstatic behind the scenes. What they needed, headlines, ratings, and a plot that fans couldn't get enough of, had been provided by the tension. A whisper from an insider said, "This is lightning in a bottle. We are unable to produce this type of energy. We're just getting started, and the spectators are glued to the screen." However, it was more than simply entertainment for the participating families. According to reports, the stress started to permeate their houses. While Yandy and Mendeecees discussed how public their next moves should be, Kirk and Rashida fought about how far things had progressed. The battle was now more than just cameras and captions. It was permeating everyday life, putting allegiances to the test and making everyone consider how much they were ready to give for pride. Only one question persisted as viewers saw everything. Was this conflict going to end, or would it continue to worsen until something broke? It felt more like a ticking time bomb than an argument, since both males were unwilling to back down. Both. Ladies were standing their position, and everyone was watching. Whatever stance fans took, there was no denying that this story had grown beyond anyone's wildest expectations, and that the upcoming episode would undoubtedly rock Atlanta to its foundations. This has been quite the journey. The tension has escalated to a level no one could have anticipated, starting with the heated debate between Rashida and Yandy, followed by Kirk losing his anger, and now Mendeecees jumping in with his own rage. The families involved are left split in ways that might take more than a single episode or two to mend, and fans are still giddy and their feelings are still unfiltered. The room was rocked by Kirk's warning. The fire was maintained by Yandy's resistance, and the response from Mendeecees added a whole new level of tension. Some people believed that a husband defending his wife at any costs was the height of loyalty. For others, it served as evidence that ego and pride have the power to ignite a small flame and make it uncontrolled. In any case, fans across are paying attention to the plot, which has grown significantly since it began. Where does it all go from here is the true question, which is straightforward yet significant. Will Kirk and Mendeecees ever be able to work things out? Or are we witnessing the beginning of a conflict that might separate the cast and permanently alter the show? Will Rashida and Yandy continue to argue? Or will the drama take a turn for the worse due to their husband's involvement? It's your chance to comment now. Do you believe Mendeecees should have stayed out of the quarrel, or was it appropriate for him to intervene? Did Kirk go too far? Or did he breach a boundary that would never be crossed again? We need to hear your opinions on this subject, so please leave your ideas in the comments section below. To ensure you don't miss a single twist, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications. I promise you that this love and hip-hop story will only become messier in the following episode.